Give you the latest on Erin this morning. Of course, the 8 a.m. intermediate advisory out earlier. 110 mile an hour Cat 2, so it's weakened. And instead of coming at you this morning, go, hey, we got a strengthening hurricane with this great eye and the eye shrinking and everything. Now you've got something that's getting absolutely whacked by shear. So pressure hasn't changed all that much, though. So it's still a formidable foe. But I wanted to show you the visible imagery this morning in where the center is and where all the deep convection is. So if you look on the southern and eastern and, of course, southern flanks of this, that's where your hurricane force winds are, just like that. So shear and dry air have gotten a piece of this morning, frankly. And you can see the two passes that the plane has made through the center. And it was really interesting. Coming in on this southwest flank, there was barely a hurricane force wind gust. All right. So that's how lopsided this is. And I mentioned the shear that we've got going on out and through here, probably about 25, 30 knots, frankly. It does not look this symmetric. OK, it is really lopsided, especially in terms of the hurricane force wind field that we have around this thing. Either way, the winds that are tropical storm force around this continue to be a very formidable wave machine in all directions. All right. That's not going to stop. All right, I was just looking at some of the 12Z guidance. They widen out the wind field, maybe as wide as 600-700 miles by the time this thing becomes extratropical. But the problem is even as that happens and it moves away, you're still propagating out waves. So even into the weekend, guys, remember, we may not have the most perfect and safe swimming conditions, even though a lot of you are still flocking to the beaches. And that's my point to all that, all right? So rip current risk is high. Wave forecast only gets bigger from what we're seeing on gen shots and the various cameras that we see. We've already got wave run up and wave break right there at the ocean. So, this only gets worse. But notice you've still got waves that have been going off to the west, even by Sunday night. So that could still be an issue. High surf advisories posted all the way up through the Cape and the islands, and the winds are going to start picking up for you. Of course, we're talking about Thursday morning maybe being maximized over the Outer Banks of North Carolina, but what about the Cape and the islands? Okay, we're bringing this up very close to the Jersey Shore Thursday afternoon and evening, and then it looks like the Cape and New England as we get in toward Friday morning, and then that eventually tapers down. But again, wind and waves change. But underwater, all that water is trying to get back to where it was. And sometimes that takes a second to do so. Even when we bypass our biggest waves, you've still got a rip current risk. And a lot of times people are fooled by that and they go back out and they say, oh, it's not as bad as it was yesterday. Well, it kind of is underwater. And that's what gets you. We've got water rise expected here, especially around the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, the James River, which is very low. So you may have some flooding issues in through there. And look at the windy conditions expected for the Cape. This is starting Thursday, going into Friday at 11 p.m. Going to be very, very windy there in Norfolk. Our worst time is going to be Thursday on in toward Thursday afternoon. And then things will start to improve, certainly, as we head in toward the weekend.